I am Richard Perry, and welcome to the Cyber JA podcast, the place where we discuss all things cybersecurity and GRC. And Cyber JA is committed to its mission of bringing those stories of cybersecurity professionals who have defied the challenges to a successful career in cybersecurity and are now able to provide mentorship for those seeking career guidance in this difficult to enter industry. Today, Robert Cooper joins us for part two of our conversation. So, Robert, welcome. Thanks for joining us once more.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, great. And I anticipate this conversation from the last time where we had left off. I mean, such an amazing conversation. And in our last conversation, you shared your dynamic and also very intriguing story about your journey into cybersecurity from being in the army to being a Uber driver to becoming a cybersecurity professional and some other roles between those. And during the conversation, you touched on a number of important points that I believe time never allowed us to delve into adequately. Namely, you touch on a number of important points, and we're talking about the practical application of knowledge versus memorizing to pass certifications. You spoke about mentorship, the role that mentorship played in your life to this point. You also spoke about the value of having leadership, having great communication skills. I mean, having that curiosity to learn new things. You also mentioned your overall process of selection in terms of your resources for studying, developing your various strategies, setting your goals for achieving your various accomplishments. You also mentioned the importance of learning those fundamentals of cybersecurity as you excel and keeping up with the current trends that are taking place within the industry. So, quite a mouthful in terms of those key points that can definitely provide some amount of guidance to those who are actually seeking to venture into this path. So, can you share, I mean, take us further into your journey as it relates to these interesting key points within your career?
Sure. I'll start with let's see what the first one was uh, practical application instead of memorization, right? And then again, I think I mentioned this in this first one that this was really something that I experienced when I was at quartermaster school for the U.S. Army in Fort Lee, Virginia. And on the first day there, the instructor had said, "Hey, you're going to take many tests here over the next few months. All of them are going to be open book tests because it's important for us for that you know where to find the information instead of just memorizing it because there's so much. There's no way you're going to be able to memorize all of this. So we're gonna teach you how to locate and then use that information. Um, and I think that served me quite well. Um, and I think that probably the more successful people in probably most industries have that mindset that it's more about like knowing where to find the information and how to find it than it is about memorizing it. And especially in this field, right? I mean, IT and cybersecurity changes so fast and so often. New things are coming into the industry so often that if you're just trying to memorize things, you're going to struggle because it's really about because you don't pigeonhole yourself and your responses to things instead of just like saying, hey, here's a new situation or a problem that I'm not extremely familiar with. Let me start looking into this. Let me start looking up how to understand this problem. And that's I think that's a really valuable skill and one that many people probably don't have a lot of experience with because most of our tests from starting in high school on through even college are more memorization based tests, right? I mean, college at least throws in the aspect of having labs where you're showing practical application of those skills. And then in my experience, that's been one of the really good things about several of the classes that I've taken, with like especially like through Google and XM Cyber and several other online platforms of like you have the core course that you're taking, but the labs that go along with it are really where you're really gaining the valuable information there. So that's always something that I've always kind of tried to focus on, because again, it changes so fast. It's about where to find that information and then how to plug it into the problem you're trying to solve.
Yeah, that's a very important point. And one of the reasons I actually highlighted that point that you have made is the fact that, for example, I am someone that I like research, I like practical application of information. I'm not someone that is so much into memorizing and taking exam, for example, trying to memorize what is A or B or C. Because the reality is that when you actually get into the real world, it's not a matter of A, B, or C. It's your ability to critically assess, analyze, look at the problem, and to find the solution to the problem. And that's a key thing, being able to apply yourself. And I find, as you have rightly said, that one of the challenges within this space, not only cybersecurity, but is the fact that many of us are very good at memorizing, and we are very good at studying and accumulating various certifications. But when it actually comes to that point of, for example, can you develop a policy, a security policy? Can you configure a firewall or something? Then you are not able to in relation to the overall structure and the operation of the organization. And I think there is a great deficit in that area, in the fact that there are many people who are very good at that practical application. However, they have that challenge in terms of applying for various jobs, because the thing is that you have to overcome the barrier of passing so many theoretical certifications. And at the end of the day, you can be very good, you can be very, very good at what you do, but yet still you're overlooked because you do not have something to say, yes, I went to, for example, Harvard, or for example, I have CISSP or A plus, yet still you possess the wealth of knowledge in relation to those areas of certification. So I think there is a great challenge there.
Yeah, I agree. And, following Simply Cyber and Dr. Gerald Auger, he a lot of times so he'll say, okay, I'm going to tell you the book answer, right? Of like how this exam asked this question, and then I'm going to give you the real world answer to it, right? And those are those are usually really different, and it's a distinction that if you make early on and you realize that it's very beneficial to your skills, right? Because just like what you were saying, it's about critical thinking skills and practical application, and it doesn't always fit into an A, B, C, or D response, right? And yeah, I think that's a really big skill to develop, and obviously not in just this one, but it's especially in this one, it really serves you well.
Yeah, sure, exactly. I totally agree. Um, So as it relates to the additional points, I mean, you spoke about the application of having mentorship. I mean, your curiosity to learn, um, setting the right goals. Can you share some further insights into those areas in terms of the value that those key things actually added to your career development?
Sure, it's and especially mentorship. I think this is one of the really big things that's allowed me to really be successful inside of a professional work environment. Is that one? I had a great mentor when I was working for a restaurant company, Bob Evans, and my area director was just a really good mentor. And I was young and right fired up and came, and was there to make sure everything was to code, to standard, to procedure. And he pulled me aside one day after I got really heated up about something. He said, look, the thing that you have to understand is that um, these people haven't had a leader for a long time here. And so if you do that, if you become that mentor to them, that leader to them, they're going to trust you. They're going to trust what you're saying. They're going to trust the process. And that really changed my outlook, and really helped me develop as well, right? Because the more that I help them develop, the more of those skills I was also really developing, and getting to where I understood why they were in place and what we were doing and what we were trying to accomplish. Um, and so that started with me, with like the hourly workers I was working with at the store. And then when I moved up to assistant general manager and then on to general manager, developing my managers was also a big thing for me as well, because it made me step back and say, and take a look at things and see why we were trying to do what we were doing inside of the restaurant. Like, why are we doing this process, right? Why is this procedure in place? And when you start to understand that, and it's not just, oh, well, this is a rule that we have to follow, or this is how it's always been done, then you can start changing those things, that like, this is the way that you've always done things. Well, let's look at what we're trying to accomplish. And then if this gets us there, that's great. Maybe we need to work on it. Maybe we need to add to that. And it shifts your focus of always just looking out for yourself, and it shifts the focus to helping other people be successful. And I think that when you do that, you create this really good environment inside of your organization, even if it's just around you. That environment really is beneficial, right? It picks up not only yourself and the other people you're working with, but it allows like the processes that you're going through to be successful. And I think that's a key for any uh, organization. I think that's what they're trying to accomplish. And when you mentor people on how to develop themselves and be more successful, everybody around them really benefits from that as well.
Sure, I totally agree. I mean, there are so often times that we are so focused on developing the technical aspect of our skill set, which is quite fine. I mean, we all need individuals who have that right practical application. But having that holistic development as part of your journey is also very valuable. Having those people skills, being able to communicate, being able to simplify things, being able to build relationships. At times, these are not really skills that you will learn in a program or a certification. So these are very,
Right.
very, very valuable skills that, as individuals trying to excel in this career path, then we need to take that time to really learn how to interact or to relate or to communicate with people within organizations to really get things going, and to be a valuable asset to the organization overall. Now, looking at your current function day to day, I mean, duties, maybe you do not have to get into the exact specifics of what you do, but let's say someone wanted to be in your position. I mean, what are some of the things that they would have to equip themselves with in terms of knowledge in order to get the job done effectively?
Well, so I do IT support and cybersecurity work for a small charter school. Um, and so having, again, really starting with those foundational skills of of the OSI stack, and like just core IT skills, like how the computers, like how computers function, switching out batteries, right, replacing batteries, hardware issues, and then moving on to like software issues, and then how the network functions, and where those breakdowns are going to be, right? Because there's places where that's going to be more common than others, and so just building off of the foundation of IT skills moves you into that next level as well. Like, okay, so we're supporting IT, and now we're going to move into securing the business, right? Securing the organization. But those have to work together, and that again, that's kind of where those soft skills really come in handy of like communicating effectively of not only your departments and everything, but other departments in your organization as well. And then like with mine, like I said, I work for a small school that's a language school. The communication is a difficulty at times because we don't speak the same native languages, right? And so like it's really easy for me to explain to another cybersecurity professional why MFA is extremely important. A Spanish teacher doesn't really understand that, right? Like they don't understand the importance of it. Like, okay, yeah, it sounds like a good thing that we can do. But so like having the again, it's the having the why we're doing things mixed in with the communication of how you want to accomplish that, and that um, it has to be a building process, right? So you have to have that trust that's built around you, so that people really start to see again what overall you're trying to accomplish. Um, so foundational skills are extremely important. So if you can't connect if you can't connect to the internet, you can't you can't find like you can't program the firewalls. You can't um, do end user management, right? You can't do multiple device management. Like all of those things have to build off of the foundation of understanding how things are progressing inside of your organization.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's a very important point. I mean, so often is that one of the things I also recognize is that as cybersecurity or IT engineers within organizations, then they are so focused on the being able to get the necessary tasks done for the organization to function. However, at the end of the day, I think they need to recognize that whatever they do is not about you, it's not about them as individuals. You have to bear in mind your context of your organization, your overall governance structure, the objectives of the organization or that particular business, that whatever it is that you're doing from a security perspective must be in line with allowing or enabling that organization or that business to function efficiently in executing and meeting their various objectives. So, regardless of your security principles, then whatever it is that you're doing must be in alignment. And I recognize that that can also be a very challenging part. So being able to communicate and to justify what it is that you do in alignment with the overall organization can be a very challenging thing, especially if you're at a management or senior level within that organization. So have you had, I mean, any amount of challenges in regards to that aspect, and how have you been able to overcome those?
Well, I just want to touch base on one more thing on that aspect. My current job, I wouldn't, if I was just looking for a cybersecurity role, I wouldn't have been able to get into. So, like we talk about, like how to get into the industry. Well, one of the big entryways into the industry, moving towards cybersecurity, is getting in on the IT side, right? The organization I work for, um, I'm it, right? They don't need a cybersecurity person. They need an IT support person. And so you can get started into an organization, and then from there, I'm taking that forward, right? I'm taking it forward of like, yeah, I'm gonna help you with your IT issues, but I'm also gonna level you up with your cybersecurity, right? We're gonna start doing, password management. We're gonna start doing MFA. We're gonna start doing, building on those, VPNs. We're gonna start, building out. We're gonna start doing risk assessments. We're gonna do, different GRC functions inside of the organization. So for people who are asking themselves, how do I get into this industry? How do I start? Where's the place? The answer is there's a lot of good ways to jump in, um, to get started, and then move forward from there.
Awesome. That's a very, very great point. And I was actually waiting to hear that point actually coming out. Is the fact that cybersecurity and we would have heard this many, many, many times, is not uh, what I would describe as a entry level. It can be a step, a starting point for you as an individual, depending on the relation, depending on your level of knowledge or experience. It can be a starting point for you. However, it is not so much of a entry point or career into an organization, based on the fact that it requires some amount of understanding and knowing of security principles, understanding networking principles to a great extent in terms of what it is that you're doing. So, as you have rightly said, at times you will want to get directly into. I want to be that cybersecurity guy. I want to get into that organization, and I want to be configuring and setting those policies, and preventing and protecting on all of these things. However, if there's an opportunity to, for example, get in at the level of help desk support, an IT technician, and a network technician, the key is to get yourself into the organization to understand the overall structure of the organization, the flow of communication, how to build relationship, understand the goals the of the organization. Then you're able to transition accordingly, and also to build your skill set to get the necessary training or certifications that fits the next role that you want to excel to in terms of building your cybersecurity career. So I don't know if you have had that level of sort of an experience as you move forward with your career so far.
Yeah, I mean, like when I first started looking around for jobs, like one of them was an IT help desk, and I thought about it, a lot. I did a couple phone interviews, and it was through a recruiter, and they were asking me like, "Hey, look, you looks, you have some good skill sets here, but you're new to the industry. We have an IT help desk position. Is that something you'd be interested in?" And I thought about it for a little bit, and I was really close to really moving forward with the opportunity, but it also didn't really align with the direction that I wanted to head to. Like, just a call center help desk may be a starting spot, and it may get you into the industry, but you also have to be able to see the path of it and everything as well. And so, for me, taking a step back and starting with a smaller organization that needed IT help, but was like more of a personal fit for me, and a personal where I had more personal communication, with the administration and with the school board, to where I could see how to move forward. Um, so I won't always say that that people should just jump into a help desk position. They need to be able to see where that next step is going to take them. And like sometimes, like especially if like going through a recruiter or a very large organization, um, you may kind of like not see the hallway of where you want to go to after that, and so maybe that's not the best fit for you. Or maybe it's an organization that when you go in and you talk to them, I'm like, okay, if I start off on IT help desk, how many people are still here on the help desk after after a year, after 2 years, after 3 years, after 5 years? Like, what's the roadmap for me to develop as well? And now, like, and I've had that opportunity with the organization I'm at, because I was like, sure, I'm going to come in, and I'm going to take care of your laptops, I'm going to take care of your access points, and that's what I started on doing. And then it was like, hey, I see that you don't have this in place yet. Do you know about this? And they're like, no, I don't know anything about cybersecurity. We run a school. I'm like, okay. And so that's a great um, you know professional development for me, right? Because now I get to show that on my resume, that I started off just doing tech support, and I'm helping them the organization mature their cybersecurity program as well. So I think that a lot of companies are looking for that progression, right? That drive to continue to learn. That was one of the other things that we kind of talked about a little bit, which is something that I think I've always tried to carry with me, because I'm always curious. I want to know the next step. I was always reading ahead in the books, right? When I was in school and everything, and they're like, that drive, that curiosity is what's going to carry you forward from starting from a really small starting position, or an entry level position, and it's going to carry you forward to that next step, because you're going to interact with other people in that organization. Like, what is it that you do? Oh, you do SOC analysts. Awesome. I want to learn about that. How do I get involved? Can I ask you questions? Can I, do you have material that I can look over? The next time that you do a tabletop exercise, can I sit in on that and see what it looks like? So that drive is going to take you, that curiosity. I think it's more of a curiosity than a drive, because I think some people have a drive of being successful, but they're not sure of how to make that a reality, right? And so I think that a large aspect of that is that curiosity of learning more, doing more, being involved more. And when you do that, people are going to see that, they're going to notice it, and they're going to progress there. Or you realize that the organization that you're working for doesn't notice that from yourself. And so you're going to start looking at other better opportunities for yourself.
Sure, I totally agree. That's a very important point. And the fact is that so often, as you have rightly said, then we enter into the industry and we just want to grab just about any role, that's any opportunity. But you have to spend that time to look at your objectives, where it is that you want to go. What are your objectives? Well, the fact is that based on my career, projection so far, I was actually at a point where I was like, every day I was saying like, come on, I have been doing this so long. There is room for growth laterally. And when I analyzed the overall organizational structure, I was saying that possibly for the next 20 years or 30 years, I will be right here, regardless of the knowledge that I'm acquiring, because there is just laterally, there's no growth for upward movement vertically. So I had to analyze that and to say, where do I really want to go with my career journey? Is this organization somewhere for 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 growth and development? So that's a very important point when you consider actually getting into an industry to assess your organization. Is there room for growth so that you can actually develop and build your skill set accordingly? So that's a very important point that you have mentioned so far. You have actually highlighted all of those key areas. That I believe can actually provide that level of guidance, a level of support for anyone that is seeking to venture into cybersecurity. So, are there any final words or advice that you'd want to share before we actually conclude this awesome
Right.
conversation?
Sure. I would just say that this is an industry that you have to have a lot of personal passion, right? It has to speak to you, because if it doesn't, it's going to be easy to get into a SOC analyst role and then burn out, because you're plugging away at the same thing. And if you don't have that passion to move forward, to continue on, you're not going to look for the other opportunities that are out there, because those other opportunities are going to be your nights and your weekends, right? It's going to be additional courses through XM Cyber. It's going to be through additional courses on NIST programs, or whatever it is, whatever you're training, wherever you're finding training materials or course materials. You have to have that personal drive to get to that next step, right? Because organizations, if you're doing a good job in their SOC room, they're going to keep you there, because you're doing a good job in that role. But you have to have that drive and that passion to move forward. And if you do, I think this industry really opens up the doors. There's so many jobs available, but they're at the mid to senior level, and that really kind of shows me that people get in, and and they're stalling out. And why are they stalling out? That's a really great question for people to to ask, of like, how am I going to get to that next level? How am I going to get to that mid level first, right? And when you do, I think that there's a lot of great opportunities out there for people.
Awesome. I mean, Robert, it was a pleasure having you sharing such insights. I mean, I actually learned a lot from you. I mean, you have added so much value to this community and this conversation. And you have shared so much insight with us, and we look forward to future conversations.
Yes, thank you so much for having me on. I've really enjoyed it.
Great. So, to everyone else, stay tuned for future conversations on CyberJA.